At 0943 hours on June 13, 1944, a single German Tiger tank, tactical number 205, commanded by SS Obersturmführer Michael Wittmann, rounds the corner onto the main road leading into Villers-Bocage, France. Within the next 15 minutes, this lone vehicle destroys 14 tanks, 15 personnel carriers, and 2 anti-tank guns of the British 7th Armored Division, the famed Desert Rats. The British column, stretched along a narrow road with hedgerows on both sides, becomes a shooting gallery. Tank after tank erupts in flames. Crews scramble from burning holes. Some never make it out. This is not an isolated incident. This is the Tiger effect, a phenomenon so psychologically devastating that British commanders banned their own intelligence. Reports from mentioning the tank's combat performance. Allied soldiers developed a condition medical officers documented as tiger phobia, the assumption that every German tank encountered must be a tiger, even though fewer than 1,400 were ever built. This is the story of how 56 tons of German engineering became the most feared weapon on the battlefield, not through propaganda, but through the cold mathematics of armor thickness, gun penetration, and a kill-to-loss ratio that still defies belief. This is the story of the Tiger tank. In January 1942, the German War Ministry issues Specification VK 4501, a directive for a new heavy breakthrough tank. The requirement reads like wishful thinking. Armor thick enough to resist all known anti-tank weapons. A gun powerful enough to destroy any enemy tank at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters, and the mobility to operate alongside existing panzer divisions. 2 companies receive contracts, Ferdinand Porsche and Henschel und Sohn. Porsche, confident of victory, begins building chassis before the competition concludes. His design features a revolutionary gasoline-electric drive system, 2 air-cooled engines generating electricity for electric motors driving each track. It is innovative, complex, and catastrophically dependent on copper, a material Germany cannot spare. The prototype performs admirably in trials, but reality intrudes. Germany's copper reserves are critically low. The electric drive system requires components that simply do not exist in sufficient quantities. Henschel's design, by contrast, embraces conventional engineering. Chief designer Erwin Aders proposes a traditional transmission, torsion bar suspension, and overlapping road wheels. A system called Schachtellaufwerk that distributes the tank's immense weight across a wider footprint. On April 20, 1942, Adolf Hitler's 53rd birthday, both prototypes demonstrate their capabilities at Rastenburg. Hitler examines both machines. The Porsche design impresses with its modern appearance, but practicality wins. On May 26, 1942, Henschel receives the production order. The first Tiger tanks roll off the assembly line in August 1942 at the Henschel plant in Kassel. Each tank requires approximately 300,000 man-hours to construct, more than 6 times the 48,000 man-hours needed to build an American Sherman. The production process involves 300 separate firms supplying components. Final assembly takes 14 days. The cost per unit, 300,000 Reichsmarks, equivalent to $100,000 in 1941 currency, or approximately $1.28 million in today's money. For comparison, Germany could manufacture nearly 3 Panzer IV medium tanks or 8 Stu G3 assault guns for the same resources. But what those resources purchase is unprecedented. The specifications read like the fever dream of a fortress designer translated into mobile form. The Tiger I measures 8.45 meters long, 27.7 feet without the gun, and 10.3 feet wide with combat tracks installed. Height to the commander's cupola, 9.8 feet. Combat weight, 57,250 kilograms, 126,214 pounds, or approximately 56 metric tons. To put this in perspective, it weighs nearly twice as much as the American M4 Sherman, which tips the scales at 30 tons. The armor protection establishes a new standard for survivability. The front hull plate measures 100 millimeters thick, 3.94 inches of rolled homogeneous nickel steel plate, welded rather than bolted. Unlike the sloped armor of Soviet T-34s, the Tiger employs vertical or near vertical surfaces, simplified for manufacturing but requiring greater thickness to achieve equivalent protection. The front turret face extends this to 120 millimeters, 4.72 inches. Side armor, 80 millimeters. Rear, 80 millimeters. Even the top deck plates measure 25 millimeters, sufficient to resist artillery fragments and light anti-aircraft fire. These numbers translate directly into battlefield dominance. Intelligence reports compiled by British forces in Tunisia document that the standard British 6-pounder anti-tank gun firing a 57mm projectile cannot penetrate the Tiger's frontal armor at any range. The American 75mm gun mounted on early Sherman tanks achieves penetration only by striking the side armor at ranges below 500 meters. The Soviet 76.2mm gun on the T-34 can penetrate the side armor at 1,500 meters under ideal conditions, but the frontal armor remains impervious except at point-blank range. But armor alone does not create terror. The Tiger's main armament completes the equation. The 8.8 centimeter KWK-36L 56 gun derived from the legendary 88mm flak anti-aircraft gun transforms the Tiger from a mobile fortress into a long-range executioner. The barrel extends 4.928 meters 16 feet, 2 inches, and fires a 10.2 kilogram armor-piercing projectile at a muzzle velocity of 810 meters per second. The kinetic energy delivered at impact allows this weapon to penetrate 100 millimeters of armor at 1,000 meters range, exactly the thickness of the Tiger's own frontal protection. At ranges exceeding 1,500 meters, the Tiger can engage and destroy Allied tanks that cannot even hope to return effective fire. The gun proves devastatingly accurate. German optical equipment Zeiss range-finding systems and gunner's optics provides clarity and magnification superior to Allied counterparts. The gunner peers through a binocular TZ-F9B telescopic sight, offering 2.5x magnification, sufficient to identify tank types at extreme distances. Combined with the gun's flat trajectory and the tank's gyro-stabilized turret, Tiger crews routinely achieve first-round hits at ranges Allied tankers consider impossibly distant. The ammunition load consists of 92 rounds 72 armor-piercing and 20 high-explosive shells, though crews often adjust this ratio based on anticipated missions. The high-explosive rounds prove equally effective against infantry, fortifications, and soft-skinned vehicles. British after-action reports from Normandy describe Tiger tanks engaging infantry positions at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters, firing high-explosive rounds that detonate with sufficient force to collapse stone buildings and eviscerate entire squads. Secondary armament includes 2 MG-34 machine guns, one coaxially mounted alongside the main gun, the other in a ball mount in the hull front, operated by the radio operator. Each machine gun fires the standard 7.92mm Mauser cartridge, with 4,800 rounds of ammunition carried in belts and drums throughout the crew compartment. The Tiger requires a crew of 5 men, each occupying a precisely defined station within the tank's confined interior. Understanding their roles illuminates both the tank's operational effectiveness and the human cost of commanding such a weapon. The commander stations himself in the right side of the turret, standing on a small platform that allows him to operate the cupola, a rotating armored cylinder topped with 7 periscopes providing 360-degree visibility. This cupola represents a significant tactical advantage. While Allied tanks require commanders to expose themselves by opening hatches to observe the battlefield, the Tiger commander maintains armored protection while scanning for targets. The cupola includes a hatch that opens to the rear, allowing the commander to fight head out in low-threat environments for enhanced situational awareness. His responsibilities extend beyond spotting targets. He must coordinate with other tanks, navigate terrain, maintain communication with infantry, and make instantaneous tactical decisions while rounds impact his vehicle's armor. The gunner sits to the commander's left, hunched over the TZF-9B sight, his right hand on the elevation wheel, his left controlling the turret traverse. The Tiger's turret rotates hydraulically when the engine runs, powered by a system delivering approximately 6 seconds for a full 360-degree rotation faster than most Allied tanks. When stationary with the engine off, the gunner must crank the turret manually, a process requiring 60 full rotations of a hand wheel for each complete circuit, a task measured in minutes rather than seconds. The gunner's skill determines whether the Tiger's theoretical capabilities translate into actual kills. Ranges must be estimated, lead calculated for moving targets, and the trigger pressed at the precise instant when sight picture, ballistics, and target movement align. The loader occupies the left side of the turret, standing beside the main gun's breech. His is perhaps the most physically demanding position. The 88mm rounds each projectile and propellant case, weighing 27 pounds, must be extracted from storage bins, aligned with the breech, and rammed home in a continuous cycle. A well-trained loader achieves a sustained rate of 6 to 8 rounds per minute, though this pace cannot be maintained indefinitely. After 20 rounds, fatigue sets in. After 40, hands bleed and muscles tremble. The recoil mechanism absorbs most of the gun's tremendous kick, but the blast overpressure and cordite fumes inside the turret create an atmosphere that burns lungs and induces nausea. The driver sits in the front left of the hull, operating steering levers, throttle, and gear selector. The Maybach HL230P 45V12 gasoline engine developing 700 metric horsepower provides power, but the Tiger's 56-ton mass demands constant attention. The transmission offers 8 forward gears and 4 reverse gears, allowing a maximum road speed of 45 kilometers per hour on paved surfaces 28 miles per hour. Cross-country speed drops to 20 kilometers per hour 12 miles per hour, and fuel consumption reaches catastrophic levels. The Tiger's 4 fuel tanks hold 540 liters 142.6 gallons. On roads, fuel consumption averages 1 kilometer per 2 liters, roughly 1 mile per gallon. Cross-country, this worsens to 1 liter per kilometer, approximately half a mile per gallon. A 60-mile journey consumes 150 gallons of increasingly scarce gasoline. The radio operator occupies the front right hull position, manning both the Fu-5 radio set and the hull-mounted machine gun. His duties include maintaining communication with battalion headquarters, other tanks, and supporting units while simultaneously defending the tank's right flank with the MG-34. The radio equipment proves remarkably capable battalion nets, operating on frequencies between 27.2 and 33.3 MHz, allow coordination across distances exceeding 15 kilometers under ideal conditions. These 5 men inhabit a space measuring approximately 6 meters long and 2 meters wide, internally roughly 20 feet by 6 feet, crammed with ammunition, fuel, machinery, and the constant thunder of the engine. Temperatures inside the crew compartment routinely exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The noise level, even with padded leather helmets, causes permanent hearing damage. Crews develop their own rituals, checking ammunition counts, testing radio frequencies, calculating ranges to potential ambush positions. They learn to interpret every sound the difference between a projectile striking armor versus penetrating it, the particular timbre of an engine beginning to fail, the subtle shift in transmission noise indicating imminent breakdown. The Tiger enters combat on two fronts simultaneously, and both debuts reveal the gulf between theoretical capability and operational reality. On the Eastern Front, in August 1942, 9 Tigers arrive at Leningrad. Adolf Hitler, impatient to demonstrate his new weapon superiority, orders immediate commitment despite the tanks arriving without adequate crew training or spare parts. On September 22nd, 4 Tigers attack Soviet positions in swampy terrain near the village of Unga. The result borders on disaster. Within hours, 3 of the 4 Tigers break down, engines overheating, transmissions failing, drive sprockets shearing. The 4th Tiger advances alone, destroys several Soviet anti-tank guns, then becomes mired in soft ground. Soviet troops swarm the immobilized vehicle, and though unable to penetrate its armor, force the crew to abandon it. German engineers eventually recover the tank, but the damage to morale and reputation proves severe. These are supposed to be invincible. The North African debut, while more successful, exposes different vulnerabilities. On December 1, 1942, Tigers of Schwere Panzerabteilung, 501 Heavy Tank Battalion, 501, engage British and American forces near Taborba, Tunisia. 3 Tigers and 4 Panzer IIEs attack Allied positions. The Tigers immediately demonstrate their main guns' devastating reach. British Crusader and Valentine tanks, armed with 2-pounder and 6-pounder guns respectively, find themselves outranged by more than 1,000 meters. The Tigers methodically destroy Allied tanks from positions the British cannot effectively counterattack. But when one Tiger attempts to traverse a railway embankment, it topples sideways, crushing its tracks. Another suffers transmission failure after only 19 kilometers of operation. The 3rd Tiger continues fighting, claiming 6 British tanks destroyed before withdrawing. Despite mechanical troubles, the psychological impact proves immediate and profound. Allied troops report facing tanks with armor impenetrable by any weapon we possess. Intelligence officers interrogate captured German soldiers, desperate to understand the new threat. Within weeks, every German tank sighting becomes a Tiger in Allied reports, even though actual Tiger deployments remain rare and localized. The Western Allies' first intact Tiger falls into British hands on April 24, 1943, during fighting in Tunisia's Jebel Jaffa region. Elements of the 48th Royal Tank Regiment engage German positions, and a combination of maneuvering flanks and concentrated fire immobilizes Tiger 131 of Schwere Panzerabteilung, 504. A 6-pounder anti-tank round penetrates the turret ring not through the 100mm frontal armor, but through the thinner joint between turret and hull. The Tiger's gun jams, and the crew commander Hauptmann Kremer abandons the vehicle. British forces recover Tiger 131 with minimal damage, and it becomes the most important intelligence coup of the war. Engineers transport the captured Tiger to Britain, where it undergoes exhaustive testing at the School of Tank Technology. British and American ordnance experts measure every dimension, test every system, and fire captured 88mm ammunition to understand ballistic performance. They document the armor composition nickel-molybdenum steel with Brinell hardness ratings between 250 and 280, indicating excellent resistance to cracking while maintaining ductility. They catalog the interleaved road wheel system, the precision of the optical rangefinders, the robust construction of the transmission, and they realize with growing concern that Allied tanks cannot compete on equal terms. The test reports distribute throughout Allied commands. One conclusion appears repeatedly. Current Allied tank designs are inadequate when facing Tigers in open terrain. Engagement should be avoided unless overwhelming numerical superiority or tactical surprise can be achieved. King George VI himself inspects Tiger 131 during a visit to Tunisia in June 1943. Photographs capture him standing beside the massive tank, his expression grave. He understands what his tankers will face in the battles ahead. Numbers tell the story with brutal clarity. Between August 1942 and August 1944, the Tiger I's 2-year production run, Germany manufactures 1,347 Tigers. For context, during roughly the same period, the United States produces 49,234 Sherman tanks. The Soviet Union manufactures approximately 35,000 T-34s. Germany's entire Tiger output equals less than 3% of American Sherman production. Yet those 1,347 Tigers inflict casualties far exceeding their numerical proportion. Detailed records maintained by Schwer Panzerabteilungen, the independent heavy tank battalions, document their combat performance with meticulous German precision. The aggregate statistics, compiled from battalion war diaries, reveal a kill-to-loss ratio that defies expectations. For every Tiger lost in direct combat, between 5.44 and 12.16 enemy tanks are destroyed, depending on whether non-combat losses are included in calculations. Specific examples illustrate these numbers. On July 7, 1943, near the village of Sayol-Kini, during Operation Citadel, SS Untersturmführer Franz Staudiger commands the only operational Tiger available to German forces defending against a massive Soviet armored assault. 50 T-34s advance toward his position. Staudiger positions his Tiger in a concealed location, offering clear fields of fire across open terrain. Over the next 30 minutes, his gunner systematically engages the advancing Soviet tanks at ranges between 800 and 1,500 meters. The T-34s, armed with 76.2 millimeter guns, cannot effectively return fire at these distances. By the time Soviet commanders recognize the threat and attempt withdrawal, 27 T-34s burn across the battlefield. Staudiger's Tiger suffers multiple impacts, but no penetrations. The remaining Soviet tanks retreat. Michael Wittmann, commanding Tigers on both the eastern and western fronts, accumulates 138 confirmed tank kills before his death in August 1944. His most famous engagement, the Villers-Bocage action on June 13, 1944, demonstrates both the Tiger's capabilities and the tactical acumen required to exploit them. Wittmann's company, attached to SS Panzerabteilung 101, receives reports of British armored columns advancing through Villers-Bocage toward German positions. Wittmann and 4 other Tigers move to intercept. At approximately 0900 hours, Wittmann identifies the British column tanks and vehicles of the 7th Armored Division's 22nd Armored Brigade, stretched along the narrow road northeast of the town. The British, believing the area secure, have halted. Crews dismount to brew tea and check maps. Wittmann makes an instantaneous decision. Rather than wait for his other Tigers to arrive, he attacks immediately, alone. His Tiger emerges from concealment at high speed 30 kilometers per hour and opens fire at the rear of the British column from a range of approximately 400 meters. The first shot strikes a Cromwell tank's rear armor, igniting ammunition and fuel. The tank explodes. Panic erupts. British crews scramble to traverse turrets, but Wittmann's driver maintains speed, and his gunner continues firing. Within 3 minutes, 4 Cromwell tanks and 3 Stuart light tanks burn. Wittmann's Tiger then drives through Villers-Bocage's main street, engaging 2 Sherman observation post tanks at point-blank range. Both explode. The British attempt to organize a response. A Sherman Firefly, armed with a 17-pounder gun capable of penetrating Tiger armor, moves to engage. But Wittmann's Tiger has already exited the town through a side street. He continues destroying half-tracks and support vehicles, creating a roadblock of burning wreckage that paralyzes the entire British column. Within 15 minutes, 14 tanks, 15 personnel carriers, and 2 anti-tank guns lie destroyed or abandoned. British forces withdraw, and the German defensive line holds. Whitman receives the Knight's Cross with oak leaves and swords. But the broader impact extends beyond medals. British commanders issue immediate orders restricting Tiger engagement protocols. No tank, regardless of type, should engage a Tiger from the front at ranges below 1,000 meters without infantry or artillery support. Sherman crews receive instructions to maneuver for flank shots exclusively. The 17-pounder Firefly tanks, only one issued per troop of 4 tanks, must be protected at all costs, as they represent the only Allied tank capable of reliably penetrating Tiger armor. Otto Carius, another Tiger ace credited with more than 150 tank kills, describes in his memoir, Tigers in the Mud, the psychological burden of these engagements. We knew they outnumbered us 20-1, sometimes 50-1. But we also knew that if we could find good terrain, if we could see them first and fire first, we could stop any attack. The weight was tremendous. Not the tank's weight, but the knowledge that if we failed, if we missed, if the gun jammed or the engine died, those 20 or 50 enemy tanks would overwhelm our position. Every engagement felt like balancing on a knife's edge. The statistics bear out this knife's edge reality. In Normandy, during June and July 1944, Tigers of Schwer SS Panzerabteilung 101 destroy 227 Allied tanks, while losing only 7 Tigers to enemy action. However, mechanical breakdowns claim an additional 23 Tigers. The kill ratio in direct combat, 32.4-1, but including mechanical losses brings the ratio down to approximately 7.6-1, still devastating, but revealing the Tiger's fundamental weakness. British General Bernard Montgomery takes an unprecedented step in July 1944. He bans all intelligence reports and after-action summaries from mentioning Tiger tank combat performance. The reason appears in a confidential memorandum to his division commanders. Reports of Tiger capabilities are severely damaging morale. Tank crews are refusing to advance when Tigers are reported in their sector. This psychological effect must be contained. The phenomenon medical officers begin documenting as Tiger phobia manifests in multiple ways. Allied tank crews routinely identify every German tank as a Tiger, regardless of actual type. The Panzer IV, Germany's most numerous tank, mounts a lower velocity, 75mm gun and features significantly thinner armor than the Tiger. Yet soldiers report encountering Tigers in sectors where no Tigers exist. Interrogation of prisoners confirms this. When asked to describe the Tigers they fought, soldiers describe Panzer IVs, Stu G3 assault guns, even captured French tanks repurposed by Germany. The psychological mechanism proves simple and devastating. The actual threat posed by Tigers, the documented instances of single tanks destroying dozens of Allied vehicles, creates an existential dread that generalizes across all German armored threats. Why risk identifying a tank's specific model when assuming it's a Tiger dictates the safest response? Withdraw and call for artillery or air support. American forces experienced similar phenomena. During the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, reports flood 12th Army Group headquarters, claiming Tiger tanks in every sector. Intelligence analysts, cross-referencing known German unit dispositions, determined that fewer than 30 Tigers participated in the entire offensive. Yet American units filed more than 300 separate Tiger sighting reports. Post-battle analysis reveals that most Tigers were actually Panzer IVs or Panther tanks' formidable vehicles, but not Tigers. The Allied response combines practical countermeasures with psychological warfare in reverse. Sherman tanks begin operating in groups of 5 rather than 4, with explicit orders that 4 tanks must coordinate to engage a single Tiger. 2 tanks maneuver for flank shots, while 2 provide covering fire. The British rush Sherman Firefly production, mounting the 17-pounder gun that can penetrate Tiger frontal armor at ranges up to 1,000 meters with standard armor-piercing rounds, or 1,500 meters, with newly developed AP-10 armor-piercing discarding sabot ammunition. By August 1944, British armored regiments deploy one Firefly per troop, with standing orders to prioritize Tiger engagements. American forces deploy the M18 Hellcat tank destroyer, a lightly armored but extremely fast vehicle, mounting a 76mm gun. The Hellcat's doctrine embraces the opposite of the Tiger's approach. Rather than trading blows with superior armor, Hellcat crews ambush from concealment, fire multiple rounds rapidly, then retreat at speeds exceeding 50 miles per hour before German tanks can return accurate fire. Military historians credit M18s with destroying at least 24 Tigers using these hit-and-run tactics. But the most effective counter to Tigers arrives from above. Allied air superiority becomes overwhelming by mid-1944. Rocket-armed, Typhoons and Thunderbolts prowl roads and fields, hunting for German armor. Tigers, with their distinctive profiles and limited speed, become priority targets. Pilots develop cab-rank tactics. Fighter bombers circle above Allied front lines, available for immediate ground attack when Tiger sightings occur. The German term Jabberschreck, terror of fighter bombers, becomes as prevalent among German tankers as Tiger phobia among Allied crews. One captured German Tiger commander, interrogated by British intelligence in July 1944, provides insight into this shift. At first, we feared Soviet T-34s and your Shermans hardly at all. The Tiger could destroy them at will. But then your Jabos, your fighter bombers, arrived. We could not move during daylight. We could not advance. We could not retreat. We could only hide under trees and wait for darkness. What good is armor that defeats tanks if aircraft simply destroy us from above? The psychological warfare extends to propaganda. Allied newspapers begin publishing articles emphasizing Tiger vulnerabilities, mechanical unreliability, fuel consumption, difficulty crossing bridges. The U.S. Army distributes training films showing Sherman crews successfully destroying Tigers, though the films carefully omit that such kills required flanking shots at close range, often resulting in multiple Sherman losses before achieving success. The message: Tigers are dangerous, but not invincible. Yet despite countermeasures and propaganda, the fundamental respect the fear never entirely dissipates. Veterans decades after the war describe hearing the distinctive sound of a Tiger's engine, a deep, growling roar produced by the Maybach V-12, and feeling their stomachs clench. You knew when a Tiger was coming, one American tank commander recalls. The sound carried over everything else, and once you heard it, you started looking for somewhere to hide. The same characteristics that make the Tiger formidable ensure its ultimate irrelevance to Germany's strategic situation. Understanding this paradox requires examining the Tiger not as an isolated weapon system, but as a component of industrial warfare. The production figures tell the initial story. Between August 1942 and August 1944, Henschel's factory in Kassel produces 1,347 Tiger I tanks. For comparison, during 1943 alone, a single-year American factories manufacture 29,497 tanks of all types: Shermans, Stuart light tanks, tank destroyers. The Soviet Union produces 24,089 tanks and self-propelled guns in 1943. Germany's total 1943 production across all tank types reaches 10,700 vehicles, a fraction of Allied output. But raw numbers understate the problem. Each Tiger requires 300,000 man-hours to construct. A Sherman requires 48,000 man-hours. A T-34, by late war, requires as little as 3,000 man-hours as Soviet production streamlines to extreme efficiency. Germany could manufacture 6.25 Shermans or 100 T-34s, using the same labor investment as a single Tiger. The economics prove catastrophic. Germany spends resources at a 7-to-1 disadvantage minimum, receiving a kill ratio that, while impressive, cannot overcome the numerical disparity. The mechanical complexity compounds this strategic error. The Tiger's interleaved road wheel system, 32 wheels arranged in overlapping rows, providing excellent weight distribution and ride quality, creates maintenance nightmares. To replace a single damaged inner wheel requires removing up to 15 outer wheels first, a process requiring specialized jacks and consuming 8 to 12 man-hours. In winter conditions on the Eastern Front, mud and snow pack between the overlapping wheels, then freeze overnight. By morning, the entire suspension system has frozen solid. German maintenance crews resort to lighting fires beneath tanks to thaw suspensions, process that risks damaging rubber tire components and creates visible smoke that attracts Soviet artillery. The transmission, while robust by contemporary standards, operates at the edge of its design limits. The Tiger's 56-ton mass strains every mechanical component. Transmission failures become routine after 150 to 200 kilometers of operation. The original Maybach-Ulver gearbox features 8 forward gears and 4 reverse gears, but the shifting mechanism relying on pre-selector technology proves complex and failure-prone. Drivers report gears refusing to engage, selector drums jamming, and clutches burning out under the constant stress of moving such immense weight. By late 1943, Germany implements running repairs, installing modified transmissions with simplified shifting mechanisms, but problems persist. The engine itself, the Maybach HL23OP45E12, delivers 700 metric horsepower, but consumes fuel at rates that defy logistics. Operational reports from Schwer, Panzerabteilungen document fuel consumption between 300 and 500 liters per 100 kilometers, cross-country equivalent to approximately 0.5 to 0.8 miles per gallon. A single Tiger on a 60-mile approach march consumes 150 gallons of gasoline. A battalion of 14 Tigers requires 2,100 gallons for the same journey. By comparison, a battalion of 14 Sherman tanks requires approximately 840 gallons. The fuel demands multiply the Tiger's logistical footprint by a factor of 2.5, requiring dedicated fuel trucks, additional guards for fuel convoys, and complex supply coordination that often fails under combat conditions. More Tigers fall victim to logistics than enemy action. Battalion records reveal this brutal arithmetic. Schwer Panzerabteilung 503, operating on the Eastern Front from January 1943 through July 1943, begins with 45 Tigers. Combat losses: 9 Tigers destroyed by enemy fire. Mechanical losses: 23 Tigers abandoned due to transmission failures, engine breakdowns, or fuel exhaustion. Recovery teams managed to retrieve and repair 11, but 12 remained behind Soviet lines, later captured and analyzed by Soviet engineers. The strategic impact of these mechanical failures extends beyond lost vehicles. When a Tiger breaks down during an advance, the unit often must delay operations for hours while recovery vehicles attempt repairs. The SD-KFZ 9/1 FAMO half-track design to recover disabled tanks can tow a Tiger only on level ground. Steep terrain or soft soil defeats even multiple recovery vehicles working in tandem. In such cases, crews demolish their own Tigers to prevent capture, destroying in minutes what required months to construct. Maintenance demands also constrain operational deployment. For every hour a Tiger operates in combat, maintenance crews require 3 to 5 hours of servicing. Track tension adjustments, engine oil changes required every 500 kilometers, transmission fluid checks, road wheel inspections, gun barrel cleaning, radio maintenance. A Tiger battalion requires a maintenance company of 120 men, 40 trucks, specialized tools, and a constant supply of spare parts that Germany's overstretched logistics system increasingly cannot provide. By 1944, spare parts shortages become critical. The Maybach engine shares few components with other German vehicles, requiring dedicated manufacturing lines. Ball bearings essential for turret traverse mechanisms fall victim to Allied bombing of German industrial centers. Optical equipment for gun sights becomes irreplaceable as Zeiss factories sustain damage. Tigers gradually cannibalize their own destroyed vehicles, scavenging functional components to keep remaining tanks operational. The final flaw emerges from strategic inflexibility. Tigers operate in independent heavy tank battalions, Schwer Panzerabteilungen, attached to corps or army commands as needed. This structure theoretically allows concentration of armor at decisive points. In practice, it fragments Tiger forces across multiple fronts, preventing mass employment. A battalion of 14 Tigers, divided to support 3 different divisions, provides less combat power than those same 14 Tigers concentrated at a single breakthrough point. Yet German commanders, facing Allied pressure across entire front lines, repeatedly divide their limited Tiger resources, ensuring they never achieve decisive local superiority. The Normandy campaign exposes every one of the Tiger's contradictions in accelerated time. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, German forces in France possess approximately 100 operational Tigers distributed among 3 Schwer Panzerabteilungen, S-Sisid 101, S-Sisebt 102, and Schwer Panzerabteilung 503. Allied intelligence estimates German Tiger strength at more than 300 Tiger phobia, distorting assessments from the outset. The initial response to Allied landings demonstrates both Tiger capability and the logistical nightmare constraining it. S-Panzerabteilung 101, stationed near Beauvais approximately 120 kilometers from the invasion beaches, receives orders to move north immediately. The battalion's 37 Tigers begin their approach march on the evening of June 6th. Within 24 hours, 8 Tigers suffer mechanical breakdowns. 5 are recovered and repaired. 3 are destroyed in place after recovery proves impossible. Allied fighter bombers attack the column repeatedly, destroying fuel trucks and forcing Tigers to hide in woods during daylight hours. The battalion reaches its assembly area near Caen on June 11th, 5 days after D-Day, with 29 operational Tigers, having covered only 120 kilometers. Once committed to battle, Tigers achieve their design purpose with devastating effect. On June 13th, Michael Wittmann's action at Villers-Bocage, detailed earlier, demonstrates the destructive potential of Tigers exploiting favorable terrain. But that same engagement reveals vulnerability. Later that day, British forces counterattack Villers-Bocage with infantry, anti-tank guns, and coordinated artillery. Wittmann's Tiger, damaged by a 6-pounder shot penetrating the turret ring, becomes immobilized in the town square. Wittmann and his crew abandon the vehicle and escape on foot. British forces capture the town and the disabled Tiger. The Bocage terrain of Normandy's small fields, bordered by thick hedgerows and sunken roads, nullifies many Tiger advantages. Long-range gunnery becomes irrelevant when visibility extends only 200 meters. Sherman crews learn to coordinate with infantry, advancing through hedgerows to engage Tigers at close range from flanking positions. A Tiger's armor means nothing when a Sherman fires into its thin side plates at 50 meters range. Allied artillery proves equally effective. Massed concentrations of 105 mm and 155 mm shells cannot reliably penetrate Tiger armor, but repeated impacts damage tracks, optics, and external equipment, mission-killing tanks without destroying them. Tigers disabled by artillery become immobile targets for follow-up airstrikes. The most effective Allied counter becomes overwhelming numerical superiority. Tiger commanders report engagements where 5 or 6 Allied tanks coordinate attacks, accepting losses to achieve flanking shots. The mathematics prove simple. If a Tiger can destroy 4 Allied tanks before being knocked out, but Allied forces deploy 10 tanks against it, the Allies win through attrition. Germany cannot sustain. Michael Whitman dies on August 8, 1944, during Operation Totalize, the Canadian drive toward Falaise. His Tiger, numbered 007, engages Canadian Sherman tanks near the village of Gomesnil. Multiple accounts describe the final moments. Whitman's Tiger destroys several Canadian vehicles, then receives multiple hits from Sherman Fireflies, armed with 17-pounder guns. The Tiger brews up ammunition, detonating in a spectacular explosion. All 5 crew members die. Whitman is later found in the turret, killed by a shell penetration through the commander's cupola. He is 29 years old. By mid-August 1944, as German forces retreat from the Falaise pocket, Tiger losses mount catastrophically. Not from combat, but from logistics collapse. Schwer Panzerabteilung 101 enters Normandy with 37 Tigers. Combat losses: 14 Tigers destroyed by enemy action. Mechanical and logistical losses: 23 Tigers abandoned when fuel supplies fail or breakdowns occur during retreat. Recovery proves impossible. Allied forces advance too rapidly, and German recovery vehicles cannot navigate congested roads clogged with retreating troops. Crews demolish their Tigers with explosive charges, destroying guns, engines, and transmissions before abandoning the hulls. The Eastern Front, meanwhile, consumes Tigers in even greater numbers. Operation Bagration, the Soviet summer offensive beginning June 23, 1944, shatters German Army Group Center. Tiger battalions assigned to hold critical positions find themselves encircled, bypassed, or isolated as Soviet forces employ deep penetration tactics rather than direct frontal assaults. Schwer Panzerabteilung 503, defending near Minsk, loses 31 Tigers during the retreat. 5 to combat, 26 to mechanical breakdown and fuel exhaustion. The battalion ceases to exist as a combat-effective unit by early July 1944. Tiger production ends in August 1944. Henschel's factory transitions to manufacturing the Tiger II King Tiger, a larger, heavier vehicle mounting the even more powerful 88mm K-43L71 gun. But by this point, Germany's strategic position has deteriorated beyond recovery. No tank design, regardless of capability, can offset the material imbalance. Allied factories produce 15,000 tanks monthly, while German production struggles to reach 1,000. The Tiger's combat record, examined dispassionately, reveals a weapon simultaneously successful and strategically irrelevant. The aggregate statistics compiled from Schwer Panzerabteilung war diaries document 10,300 enemy tanks destroyed and 11,380 anti-tank guns and artillery pieces eliminated. Against these kills, German forces lose 1,715 Tigers, some 1,347 Tiger Is, and approximately 492 Tiger Es, with roughly 40% lost to direct enemy action and 60% to mechanical failure, logistics collapse, or deliberate destruction to prevent capture. The kill ratio, calculated across all theaters, AVERAG, is 6.0 to 1 when including whole loss causes and 10.6 to 1 when considering only combat losses. These figures represent extraordinary tactical success. No other tank design of World War II achieves comparable effectiveness per vehicle deployed. Yet this tactical success translates into strategic failure. Germany invests 300,000 man-hours per Tiger labor that could produce 30 Stu G3 assault guns, Germany's most cost-effective armored vehicle, with a production time of 10,000 man-hours each. A Stu G3, armed with a 75mm gun and protected by 80mm frontal armor, achieves approximately 70% of a Tiger's combat effectiveness at 3% of the resource investment. But Hitler's obsession with qualitative superiority over quantitative adequacy ensures Germany pursues Tiger production despite the economics. The human cost compounds the material waste. Each destroyed Tiger kills 5 highly trained crew members, men selected for technical proficiency, combat experience, and leadership potential. By 1944, Germany cannot replace these specialist crews. New Tiger commanders arrive at frontline units with minimal training, sometimes with fewer than 100 hours of driving experience. The intricate coordination required to exploit the Tiger's capabilities, commander spotting targets, gunner ranging and firing, loader maintaining rate of fire, driver positioning for optimal firing angles, requires hundreds of hours of practice. Germany no longer possesses the time or fuel to provide such training. The final battles reveal this degradation. In Berlin during April 1945, a handful of Tigers participate in the hopeless defense against overwhelming Soviet forces. King Tiger No. 314, stationed near the Tiergarten, destroys 39 Soviet tanks, primarily T-34s and I-2 heavy tanks, during a 48-hour period. The crew, veterans transferred from the Western Front, exploit every tactic developed over 3 years of Tiger combat: concealed positions, long-range engagement, immediate displacement after firing. They destroy Soviet tanks at ranges exceeding 1,200 meters, shoot out turret optics to blind enemy crews, and coordinate with supporting infantry to defeat Soviet tank killer teams. But individual brilliance cannot change outcomes. Soviet forces simply bypass the King Tiger, sealing off the sector with infantry and artillery, while armored spearheads continue toward the Reichstag. On April 30, 1945, King Tiger 314 attempts to retreat through Tiergarten. The tank strikes a German anti-tank mine, one of hundreds scattered during the chaotic defense, severing its right track. The crew, facing encirclement, demolishes the tank and escapes on foot. That King Tiger represents one of the last operational Tigers in existence. The Allies, victorious, inherit the Tigers left behind. British, American, and Soviet forces recover disabled Tigers, transport them to ordnance testing facilities, and conduct detailed evaluations. These post-war assessments reach consistent conclusions. A British report dated November 1945 states, "The Tiger represents the highest achievement in armor protection and firepower attained during the war. However, its mechanical complexity, resource demands, and limited production numbers ensured it could never influence strategic outcomes. The Tiger succeeded tactically wherever deployed, but failed strategically. Through its mere scarcity, Soviet evaluations prove harsher. Soviet engineers, examining captured Tigers, note the precision manufacturing components machined to tolerances of 0.01 millimeters, optical equipment of exceptional quality, armor plate metallurgy superior to Soviet equivalents." But Soviet tankers interviewed about Tiger effectiveness describe a different reality. "We feared them, yes, but there were never enough to matter. For every Tiger we encountered, we faced 20 Panzer IVs or assault guns. We developed tactics, mass assault, flanking maneuvers, artillery preparation. Tigers could be killed. They were killed." American assessments focus on doctrinal implications. A U.S. Army Ordnance Department report from 1946 analyzes whether American tank development should pursue Tiger-like heavy armor and firepower or continue the Sherman's philosophy: adequate capability, high reliability, mass production. The report's conclusion recommends a middle path: develop heavy tanks for breakthrough operations, but maintain medium tanks as the armored force backbone. This doctrine eventually produces the M26 Pershing heavy tank and M46 Patton medium tank vehicles, incorporating Tiger lessons without Tiger flaws. The Tiger's legacy extends beyond tactical considerations into the realm of military mythology. Post-war histories, memoirs, and popular culture transform the Tiger into a symbol sometimes of German military prowess, sometimes of fascist hubris, always of raw mechanical power divorced from strategic wisdom. Films, books, and documentaries emphasize individual Tiger actions. Whitman at Villers-Bocage carry us on the Eastern Front, while overlooking the thousands of nameless Allied tankers who died attacking Tigers, and the millions of German soldiers who never saw a Tiger because so few existed. Tiger 131, the vehicle captured in Tunisia in April 1943, survives as the only operational Tiger I in existence. Restored by the Tank Museum in Bovington, England, it runs demonstration events, its Maybach engine producing the distinctive growl that terrified Allied soldiers 80 years prior. Visitors photograph its massive armor, peer through the gunner's sight, and marvel at the 88mm gun. But the tank sits silent on these essential truths. It represents extraordinary engineering deployed in service of an evil cause. It achieved tactical brilliance while contributing to strategic disaster. It terrified enemies, yet proved irrelevant to Germany's defeat. What lessons emerge from the Tiger's combat history? The question proves more complex than simple narratives of quality versus quantity suggest. First, the Tiger demonstrates that tactical excellence cannot compensate for strategic failure. German commanders achieved remarkable kill ratios, employed innovative tactics, and maintained fighting effectiveness against overwhelming odds. None of it mattered. The fundamental equation of industrial warfare production capacity multiplied by resource availability determined outcomes. Germany's decision to invest resources in Tiger production represents a classic strategic error, selecting optimal tactics while ignoring logistical reality. Second, complexity generates vulnerability. The Tiger's sophisticated engineering interleaved road wheels, precision optics, hydraulic turret traverse provided genuine advantages in ideal conditions. But war rarely provides ideal conditions. The same complexity that enabled Tiger superiority in perfect circumstances ensured failure when roads turned to mud, when spare parts stocks depleted, when trained crews died faster than replacements arrived. Sherman tanks, derided by historians for inferior armor and firepower, won through reliability. When a Sherman broke down, a single mechanic could repair it within hours using common tools and readily available parts. Third, psychological warfare functions in both directions. The fear Tigers inspired in Allied troops proved real and measurable. Tiger phobia altered tactics, depressed morale, and complicated operations. But this same reputation generated Allied countermeasures, accelerated development of tank destroyers, prioritization of 17-pounder gun production, refinement of infantry tank cooperation tactics. The Tiger's fearsome reputation motivated Allied armies to solve the Tiger problem, whereas a less intimidating threat might have received less urgent attention. Fourth, the human element determines mechanical outcomes. The Tiger required exceptional crews to achieve its potential. 5-man commander, gunner, loader, driver, radio operator working in perfect synchronization could accomplish miracles. But training such crews demanded time Germany increasingly lacked. By 1944, Tiger battalions included crews with minimal experience, commanders who had never fired live ammunition in training, and replacement troops pulled from other branches with inadequate tank familiarization. The Tiger's complexity magnified this training deficit. A poorly trained Sherman crew might achieve 50% effectiveness. A poorly trained Tiger crew achieved perhaps 20%. The tank's sophistication became a liability when crews lacked expertise to exploit it. Fifth, strategic mobility matters more than tactical mobility. Tigers achieved adequate tactical mobility road speeds of 45 kilometers per hour, cross-country speeds of 20 kilometers per hour, ability to traverse moderate terrain. But strategic mobility, the ability to redeploy rapidly across fronts, proved catastrophically inadequate. Tigers required specialized rail cars for long-distance transport, consumed fuel at rates that emptied tank trucks during approach marches, and broke down with sufficient frequency that operational readiness rates, the percentage of Tigers actually available for combat at any given moment, rarely exceeded 60%. Allied tanks, while often inferior in direct combat, could redeploy rapidly, concentrate at decisive points, and maintain operational readiness rates exceeding 80%. The Tiger's legacy permeates modern armored warfare doctrine, though often in cautionary terms. Modern main battle tank design consciously rejects the Tiger philosophy. The American M1 Abrams, British Challenger 2, German Leopard 2, these vehicles prioritize reliability, maintainability, and operational availability alongside firepower and protection. None approach the Tiger's complexity to capability ratio. All incorporate lessons learned from Tigers abandoned beside Russian roads for want of a spare transmission part. Military academies worldwide teach the Tiger as a case study in strategic overreach, a weapon so resource-intensive that its production actively damaged the deploying nation's war effort. The counterfactual question inevitably arises. What if Germany had built 10,000 Panzer IVs or WWIIs instead of 1,347 Tigers? Could more numerous, simpler vehicles have delayed defeat? The question admits no certain answer, but the arithmetic suggests Germany's actual choices hastened its destruction. Yet for all these analytical conclusions, one truth resists comfortable historical assessment. The men who faced Tigers in combat knew genuine terror. Not propaganda, not mythology, but the visceral understanding that their armor could not resist, their guns could not penetrate, and their survival depended on numerical superiority purchased with their comrades' lives. That fear was rational, justified, and fundamentally correct. The Tiger was the most formidable tank of World War II. It was also strategically irrelevant. Both statements can be true simultaneously. 56 tons of welded steel, powered by 700 horses, armed with an 88mm gun. The Tiger tank embodied Nazi Germany's philosophy distilled into mechanical form. Brilliant engineering, tactical superiority, strategic blindness. It terrified Allied troops because it genuinely was terrifying. A weapon that could destroy any tank at any range with near impunity. But that tactical excellence could not overcome arithmetic. 1,347 Tigers against 84,000 Allied tanks. The Tiger story is not really about the tank itself. It's about the choices nations make when facing industrial warfare, whether to pursue perfection or adequacy, whether to build the best weapon or enough weapons, whether tactical brilliance can substitute for strategic wisdom. Germany chose perfection and lost. The Allies chose adequacy and won. Today, Tiger 131 still runs at Bovington, its engine producing the same deep growl that echoed across Tunisian deserts and French fields. Veterans who heard that sound decades ago report the same visceral reaction, muscles tensing, breath catching, the immediate urge to find cover. The fear remains real, even when the threat no longer exists. If you found this deep exploration of military history compelling, please like this video and share it with others interested in the realities of armored warfare. Leave a comment with your location. I read every response and appreciate hearing from viewers worldwide. Subscribe to this channel to support deeply researched historical content that goes beyond surface narratives to examine the complex truths of conflict. Thank you for keeping history alive. These stories matter not to glorify war, but to understand the decisions, sacrifices, and consequences that shaped our world.